very similar pages.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll do, right?
We'll
so-
Yeah,
we'll
11's
call
also
order.
a project right now, privately nuts.
With the Pledge of Allegiance, tonight we do have a flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of the agenda, anything to add?
I
Did you
guess
say?
RSU 2102.
Okay, we'll make that B, RSU, school board.
Under manager's report, I got two other items I'd like to add. Compaction container and the old cruiser update.
Okay, anything else? Motion to approve as amended,
So moved.
second, all in favor? Public forum, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda, may do so now. Oh,
Beauty before age.
Oh, okay. Jack?
Yes, I've been reading in the papers recently that a number of towns in Maine have passed or set up a moratorium on marijuana businesses in the town. And I wondered if you had given any thought to at least thinking about that and having a discussion about it.
Yes, we actually are going to discuss it tonight, I believe it's item D, under manager's report. No, it just says referendum approvals, it doesn't specifically say that.
All right.
But yes.
Well, either way ahead or way behind you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want a question and a comment, I guess. The Cape of Ribbon Cottages had a ribbon cutting, I believe, on the 26th, and yet no one from the town was there, no one representing the town was there at this ceremony. I understand there was some permitting issues and so forth, but my comment is that there are a few bright spots of economic development in this town, and that's certainly one of them. Joe, as far as I know, has been forthcoming with us and done everything we've asked him to do. And I just thought it was bad form that no one was there representing our town, from the board or from the manager's office or anyone. So, that's my question, that's my comment. I'll comment, think about it.
I will tell you that I had intended on going, I intended on leaving work, I told the board that I was gonna go, and I had things that came up at work that I just could not get away. So it was my plan to make that, but I just couldn't make it.
I've not talked to Joe, I don't know anything about it, I just was reading in the paper and so forth, it just struck me as odd.
I will support that opinion and second it. And there was an excuse given by the town manager that there was no certificate of occupancy, but it was, I'm wondering if he couldn't attend because there was no certificate of occupancy, why was the meeting held at all? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, first of all, it was the Chamber of Commerce that set it up, so they didn't realize that there was no, that there were permitting issues.
I understand, but if the town manager couldn't attend because there was no certificate of occupancy, then why could the meeting proceed at all?
Probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
So,
If there wasn't, and I don't know whether they were able to get a CO or not.
There was
but-
no CO as of Wednesday, the meeting.
so why was there no enforcement of that then?
Or, excuse me, Joe, or what, did anybody talk to Joe and say, Joe, could you postpone the meeting perhaps?
Yeah, the developer and the parties knew that there was no certificate of occupancy.
But was any conversation held, hey, Joe, there's no certificate, maybe you ought to think about postponing this for a while?
I believe that came up, but it didn't come through my office. I believe the code enforcement officer had a conversation with the program or the manager of the development, and had that discussion with him.
bad form.
Anyways,
Not knowing anything about this, my observation is that I think we're all here because we want to improve the town and encourage businesses. And we ought to be trying to do everything we possibly can to support business growth. And hope we will.
I agree, I planned on being there when I was out of state, so
But you wouldn't have been allowed to attend.
I would have been there. I would have attended. Whether allowed or not, I would have attended. Same way with Dan, I mean, Dan would have attended.
I had every plan on attending, but what comes first, so.
Okay, any other items under public forum? Okay. Approve the minutes of November 14th. Okay, motion's made, we have a second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, all in favor? Okay. Committee and board reports, planning board meeting?
When is the next planning board meeting? Next week, right?
Rich is here, he can address it.
There's a public hearing this coming Thursday, and then there's a regular meeting on the 8th. It'll be the last meeting this year.
And the public hearing is on,
We have some ordinance adjustments. We've got, we had had there got a special town meeting for reformatting of the ordinance, and we have drawn up another formatting change because it didn't survive the last special town meeting. So we have a new format that we want to bring forward, and I believe we also have the growth ordinance put on the public hearing to be looked at.
okay. Anything else under planning board? I don't think RSU school board meeting.
Meeting of Monday, November 21st, 2016. The chair started off by announcing that Maureen received an award for 18 years of service dedicated to public education in Maine. Under consent agenda items, they approved, there's a bunch of policies that are to be deleted. These are covered in other areas. Accountability, grievance procedures for persons with disabilities, student technology device and internet use, school system, web pages, principals of recreation activities off school property, and corporal punishment. They had no old business, no new business, committee reports. Second reading for extracurriculum and co-curricular activities, code of conduct for middle school and high school students. There was a discussion on, in there, it discussed if a crime has taken place, and there's some board members that felt that the crime should be spelled out, and exactly what a crime is all about, and the different levels of the crime. But the committee had this discussion, they discussed it with council, and they felt that it should be left as is. There was also a very long discussion on repeat offenders and how to handle them. There were some that were like, 3 strikes you're out, boom, that's it, see you later, bye. But there are others that are, listen, this is, the goal is to help students, not just to turn them away. If there are repeat offenders, sometimes there are underlying issues. So, the goal here is to, try to work and help the student out. Human resources, they went over the superintendent's goals. Her goals were strategic planning, supporting teachers and learning, and the building project. She went over how she supported all of those goals. The naming committee had a meeting. They talked about what might be named, gym, theater, library. There were some others that were mentioned, STEM lab. They're working on creating a form on how you go about naming an area. Right now, they're focusing on the high school, but they may come back on something for other schools that are going through the renovations. Building committee update, as we all know, we're here in ML Day, consolidated. There are some community tours that are scheduled for December 1st. The high school is still on track. They ran into some unsuitable soils that they had to get rid of, but those should easily be absorbed in the budget, as they are doing very well budget-wise. Facilities, Finance Committee, kind of a joint meeting. They were developing some tactics and strategies on building a capital reserve. Recall I talked about that a few meetings ago. Currently, there's $300,000 in that fund. There are a couple of schools of thought. Some say that there should be 2% of the building evaluation. Others should say there should be 1 to 1.5 months of operating costs. The consensus is there should be around $2 million in that fund. Obviously, they're quite a ways off, so they're working on trying to put together plans to take care of that. They're working on a draft for the fiscal year 2018 budget. The next meeting is on December 8th. Communications Committee, they met on November 7th, and they also had a discussion on Facebook and how to use it to communicate, and other types of social media to communicate to parents. And let's see, school liaisons. Kennebunk High School Senate, interested in the late start committee. There are some local schools that are doing late start, but they said until the high school is complete, they're not going to entertain any of that. Megan Lovejoy gave an update on consolidated school. The chair mentioned that the legal competition was very well supported by a whole bunch of schools, and I guess there was some Notre Dame folks that were there also. There was no update from superintendent, and we adjourned at 8:30 p.m.
Okay. Manager's report, the draft audit report.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I provided in your packet the draft audit report from our auditors, giving you the opportunity to take a look at it, and if there are any things that you wish to talk about or adjust. I can certainly have the auditors come in. We need to review that report with you. Our review indicated to us that it seemed entirely accurate based on information that we provided to them in their review of our internal controls and so forth. I have to say that the audit process this year was a lot smoother than it was the previous year, and I have to give kudos to the Deputy Treasurer, Lisa Denner, for her efforts in preparing the materials that were necessary for the auditors. Generally, the auditors would be here a week to 10 days, and they would give about 3.5 days to wrap up their work. And I was very pleased with the effort that we had taken to get all the materials ready for them and provide them a place to go with. So, in your review, if you see something, just let us know, and we'll have them review it with you. The preliminary study on the sewer work on Route 1, the Sewer Advisory Committee met again on the 22nd of November with Mike Stein from Wright Pierce. And the focus of that meeting was to anticipate and agree on the town's anticipated growth areas along the Portland Road, long-term as well as the short-term, and to really categorize the primary study area that we're looking at. And for us, the primary study area is from the Kennebunk River to the Campground Road intersection. The town planner will provide data, site data on the properties identified in the DB2 and the DB1 and the DB2 in the primary study area. And we'll begin to look at square footage of properties, existing buildings, and then try to come up with some sort of flow analysis based on that. The secondary study area will be from Campground Road to the Cape Arundel Cottages. Tad has put Mike Stein in contact with Joe Fellini at the campgrounds to try to begin their process of putting together their flow analysis. So that data will then be used to take to the Kennebec Sewer District in our attempts to try to work out a long-term agreement with them in terms of accepting our waste. The other issue that has come up and we're working on within that whole scope of that project is, as you know, the Bartlett Bridge will be rehabbed and replaced this summer, starting in June. I think they anticipate construction done in October, November. Part of our efforts there is that even though we don't have a long-term agreement with the Kennebec Sewer District right now, it's important for us to take some effort to hang some sewer pipe or the hangers underneath that bridge in anticipation that we're going to be able to work out something with them. As I think I told you at the last meeting I attended, it would be cost prohibitive for us to bore under the river after that bridge was done. And so the work that we need to do may or may not be used by us depending on our agreement with them, but I think the Sewer Advisory Committee and the board, to a degree, when we discussed it, felt it was important work to get done. So the Wright Pierce has developed the blueprints, have provided that material, or will be providing that material to MDOT for insertion into their contract documents, and that will be going out to bid in January. Our piece of that nickel is anticipated to be about $35,000. When the project goes out, it appears from my conversations with MDOT today is that we're going to be looking at 8% of the construction cost to do our portion of that work. That will have to be upfront money at some point. As you know, we have $43,000 that's been set aside for the study, and now that we have this other stuff that's starting to come up, some of that money and some of the work that will be done in the study is going to be put on hold until we're able to finish off and know precisely what our cost and what our efforts are going to have to be on the bridge. So that's where we are right now. Sam is part of the Sewer Advisory Committee, and hopefully I haven't left anything else. Sam,
Yeah, there's one point that the state has prohibited any disturbance of the new roadway for 5 years.
Correct.
So if the sewer does go through within 5 years, unless these hangers are there, we will have no way to get
Right.
across the river. So it's an insurance policy. A call, or something, but it's preserving our rights for the future.
The other thing that will be part of that will be, there will be piping that will be put, it's not a lot of it, but in the right-of-way on the I'd say the non-travel way against the side of the road will be installed and capped in the event that we do have an agreement with them. And that will be done, then the pipe under there can be hung, it will be outside of that 5-year window for construction. And then if we enter an agreement, then we can tap into the rest of our piping and then run into the district. So we're trying to do some pre-planning. Hopefully it all works out, but we won't know after the flows the receptiveness of the sewer district to work with us to accomplish that. So that's where we are with that. The state of Maine is now mandating that coming up, they're going to be moving all motor vehicle registrations to laser printing activity. The state now is in the final of their preliminary review of some of that, of the equipment that will be required. We had our copy folks, BEU, come in and give us a quote for a laser copier, which was, in my opinion, just exorbitant. It was over $500 for one. We contacted the state, they put us in charge, we're in contact with the city of Bangor, who is a test site. And Bangor is utilizing several laser printers manufactured by Dell. They provided us the contact information, and we went ahead and purchased, because of their efforts and the quality of work there, we went ahead and purchased 2 new laser printers that will be installed at the town in customer service. So right now, we only have one dot matrix printer that takes care of both of the stations up here. Now, each station will have a dedicated laser printer to take care of those efforts. So when we're put online, we'll be ready to go. I put on here referendum approvals and impact to Arundel, and specifically I wanted to chat a little bit about the question 1, the marijuana referendum, and try to determine how you folks wish to proceed, if anything. And the other piece that I wanted to talk about was just to give you a heads up on, I'm still looking at it, but what impact the new minimum wage adjustments in the state will have upon us as we develop our budget and as we look at some of our employees that are in that minimum wage category. But first, I think I just wanted to chat a little bit about the question 1, the marijuana referendum. I reached out to the town attorney to provide a review of our ordinance, to see how the ordinance would stack up as it presently exists, and in her opinion, what we should be doing in the future. I provided that to you. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. I think I also provided it to Rich, so he can take a look at it. And just basically, where do you want us to go? Do you think that we need to give it some more due diligence review? Do you feel that that we should turn it over to the planning board to look at this and look at the opinion from the town attorney and to try to put together some sort of moratorium package so we can begin to get some time set aside before we really delve into this? I'm really up in the air as to how you wish to proceed. So I felt that maybe we just give you some options and we'll see where it takes us.
I think the planning board's gonna have to,
Well, from a planning board point of view, because there are a couple of spots in the ordinance that, according to the town attorney, would allow on
Potentially.
January 1st, when the law goes into effect, even though the state hasn't done anything, we're faced with the issue that somebody could come into town and say, I want to open up a retail marijuana facility, and if we don't have a moratorium in place, we have no choice. They're allowed to open that up. From a planning board point of view, we'd like to see a moratorium imposed so that rules and regulations could be developed. Either, we don't know what Augusta's gonna do, we don't know what, if anything, the new president-elect is going to do about it, but from a town point of view, this is the wild, wild west, and if we had some kind of a moratorium, then we could work on developing where they could be placed, what kind of controls we could have. My understanding of the current regulation or of the law is that it allows you to light up outside. You can have a smoke shop and you can sit in the courtyard and get high. Well, there's gonna be a lot of people walking by getting high. This is probably not a good thing. So we would like to see a moratorium, at least give us time into the June town meeting to work up some kind of a regulation to present.
What, moratorium for 6 months, what's the maximum you can have for a moratorium, 6 months?
It's 6 months each time. I think you can extend it on, but we'd like to see the 6-month moratorium, and then if necessary, we can look at extending it further.
What's the process for putting a moratorium in place?
just make a motion, I believe, right? Tom, have you been involved in any of that before?
I haven't, but I think we should probably, as Leah's suggesting, get a look at what the ordinance would say as far as a moratorium is concerned. Length of time, what it's going to impact, you know, you have to have reasons for it, as the statute states, and
Right.
the reasons are, as Rich has already
Oh, yeah.
cited. Essentially, you need the opportunity to work on appropriate regulations, these kinds of activities are going to go on. But I'd like to see what Leah says she's already prepared it for other towns,
Right.
so we can take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would be in favor, just to give them the opportunity, you know, not that I'm against it, we need to have some rules and regulations, we need to make sure we get ourselves covered for this, so I would certainly be in favor of, you know, trying to give them time to do their work.
My big problem is January first is around the corner. It's 31 days away. There's not enough time for us to put it.
Regulations in place, reason enough to impose a moratorium? Should be, I would think.
I mean, it's unclear to me whether they're gonna be able to do anything in January 1, because the legislature still has to write legislation. I mean,
Which is why we were looking for at least a 6-month moratorium, because from the planning board point of view, we have a meeting on December 8th, and we won't have a chance to meet again until after January 1st.
I'm just not sure if anybody can knock on the door January 2nd and say, I want to open up shop, because the legislature is gonna have to act,
The legislature's supposed to act.
and that's supposed to
but-
take a year.
But the law goes into effect on January 1st, whether the legislature's ready for it or not. And that's why we've seen a lot of towns in the area that have put in 6-month moratoriums, because nobody knows what's gonna happen. And I think in this case, we're better off being safe and saying we're going to have that moratorium so that we can develop it, instead of waiting until somebody knocks on the door and says, hey, I wanna open up a marijuana smoke shop in your town, and your ordinance can't stop me.
I think we should have something for our next meeting, so that we can take action for our next meeting.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'll reach out to the town attorney and have some stuff that you can take a look at.
Donna?
One of the many questions I have about this is what about the conflict between what is now state law and federal law? And where,
Nobody knows the answer to that, Don.
but I'm looking at a town being liable for breaking a federal law. And if we don't have to worry about breaking federal laws, I think we could come up with a list of some that we think are pretty stupid and can ignore them. You know, that's another issue.
Well, as Rich said, we don't know what our new Attorney General attitude will be with respect to prosecution for marijuana at the federal level.
Yeah.
It's an interesting legal morass out there. Nobody doesn't really have any answers to that question. And obviously, nothing's been done. I mean, we have the federal laws on the books right now. They're not being enforced.
Yeah, look at Denver and some of the ones that are.
Simply are not being.
Well, yeah, no, I understand that problem. I guess my 2 cents would be to err on the side of being proactive with this as opposed to reactive.
Just a comment, I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Other towns in Maine are faced with the same thing. Has the attorney, or perhaps you, reach out to your counterparts and say, hey, what are you guys doing, and can we see it?
Yeah, she has indicated that they have a variety of clients that have already taken some steps, and she'll share that information with us.
Jack, did you have?
Same comment.
Let's do your thunder story, Jack.
That's all right.
So we will have something for our next meeting from Leah. Good.
The other thing was the minimum wage. As you know, it's going to go to $9 effective. We have some summer recreation employees that probably would fall in that minimum wage category. What impact that will have, I'm not quite certain at this point. I'll have to speak with the recreation director a little further, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. In terms of other employees that work for us, on a part-time basis, they're well beyond the minimum standard at this time, so we don't have an issue there. But it will be our young employees that are working with our kids. So we'll have to take that and address that, and we'll have some sort of recommendation for you to do in the budget process, how we're going to handle that.
Would that apply to the volunteers at the fire station?
Well, there's no volunteers there.
Well, that's
They're-
true.
they're
We have
call-
a call.
We have a call force and we have a per diem force. Our call force, the pay right now is
Oh, is
$10.69.
it? Okay.
So we're sort of above that. But,
It's been a long time since I did that.
yeah. And it continues to move up. If you look at the law, it ratchets up until 2020, when it's gonna be $12 an hour. You are scheduled to have a meeting the day after Christmas on the 26th of December. And I'm wondering what you would like to do with that meeting. Employees have that day off because Christmas falls on a Sunday, so Monday is an official, our official holiday for that day. In the past, when speaking to Simone, the town has taken two positions. They've either move the meeting to the 27th, which would be a Tuesday, or eliminate the meeting as a result of being at the end of the year and during the holiday season. Because then you'll have New Year's holiday on the end of the month. So I'm just gauging what your thought process is in terms of how conducting that meeting.
Will the school be open? That's school vacation?
Well, that's according to the list I have, they would only be closed on the 26th. I don't think the list showed anything else besides that for being closed. So I can double check it.
Or perhaps a Tuesday meeting at the fire station?
The only pressing issue really would just be payroll, right?
Right.
And we've had just a quick meeting at town hall before, just to sign that.
Yeah.
For the holidays, I'm in favor of that, if we wanna do that.
I think maybe we should wait till the next meeting to decide what to do, see what your agenda might look
Okay.
like, or whether you need anything addressed
That's
on the
good, Paul.
27th. If you don't, then
Yeah.
Dan's right, I think
Okay.
there's no big, or even, items that need to be addressed.
Then we could just sort of maybe have a housekeeping
Right.
meeting, and any other issues that may come up. Perhaps we will hold that at the fire station if we have to. Okay. Sounds good. They delivered the compaction, new compaction container today. Public Works placed it in location. They've cycled it, it works fine. So just what we anticipated. And we have to send a big thank you to Waste Management as a result of, or Casella Waste System, as a result of them allowing us to use a compactor for a compacting container for time without any cost to it. So very nice of them.
They treat us good.
Yes, they have. And finally, while I was on vacation, and I didn't find out until I got back, and then a couple of days went by, but I guess the old cruiser is here. We have it, it will be put in service tomorrow. And then the mechanic go through the vehicle. There are a couple of issues, we're gonna have to put some new tires on it sometime during the winter time, but for all intents and purposes, it's ready to go. So
Does that say Town of Arundel on the side of it?
it doesn't yet, but it will. My plan is to try to get some reflective tape that says something about the Town of Arundel on the side of the, I wish we had a seal. It'd be nice to be able to put a seal on there, and that would be a great project maybe for the school kids to do in the future, to get a seal done and have our own, so we could add that on there too. We'll have something on there that'll say Town of Arundel.
And what was the primary use of that gonna be?
As it was in the past, it's been used by the code enforcement officer to travel around, do his inspections. If the Public Works Department has to go chase parts, they've utilized it to go as opposed to taking a 1-ton. And then staff, if they have to go out of town, I know that, I think next week, Wendy will be in Bangor, yes, for a general assistance, welfare administrators meeting, so she'll utilize it. That's what it's primarily used for.
Okay, old business.
That's all I have.
Under old business, enforcement matters related to Brookside Estates. John, I think we put this on there so you could bring this up to discuss.
Well, I thought we were gonna leave the discussion, but approximately 2 months ago, maybe a little more, I submitted a list of questions concerning some enforcement issues around Brookside Estates to the Board of Selectmen, and the board had asked the town manager to answer those questions. In the answer to the question, I did send you an email reply, and I trust you will have received that in my opinion, none of the questions were answered. And so I am appreciative that the board is taking this issue seriously, that we should have these questions, especially the essential questions, which involve putting the town at financial risk, to have those answered.
John, can I ask you, what financial risk do you think the town had?
Well, you put a surety in place to ensure that a contractor will complete a project.
Correct.
If the contractor fails, or walks out, or whatever happens, and the project is left uncompleted, it is up to the town to complete that project.
Not true.
Not on private property.
Town can't spend a dime on private
Can't do
property.
it.
Then why do we have a surety?
We do it basically to, I think, accommodate prospective purchasers against, or insulate them against what you just said. That, you know, a builder, a developer goes belly up, project doesn't work out, and has left these folks in a circumstance where they now have to try to figure out how to finish their road, or whatever may happen, but we can't do anything.
So I totally misunderstood surety then, because if the surety that we're asking the contractors to put up basically doesn't insure the town against anything, then why are we asking the contractors to do that? That's a whole different story. Why are we imposing that on the contractor if it's not necessary to protect the town?
Because I think, again, we're trying to protect those people who might ultimately buy into this development against, running up against a developer doing what you
You're
just
providing
described.
insurance for potential buyers?
Essentially.
Okay, but then we neglected to provide that insurance. If that's the board's intention to do that, to manage business that way, then we neglected to provide that insurance in the case of Brookside Estates. Because the manager felt it was unnecessary.
I didn't get the sense that the manager felt it unnecessary, but.
Well, it was like, what, 6, 8 months, no, almost a year since it was supposed to be paid and it was finally paid.
Well, again, I don't know whether the manager can speak for himself, he's here.
Well,
Felt
the
it's
manager hasn't
unnecessary.
really addressed any of this yet, but, okay, so if I would like to re-examine that, and maybe, I don't know if the planning board does that, or if the Board of Selectmen does that, but I would like to re-examine the concept of this surety if it is not to protect the town against financial, or to protect the town from financial risk. Because if it's not, then the town has no business in imposing that. It's an extra expense, and an extra expense not only on the contractor, but it's also an extra expense on the side of the town, because there's a bunch of paperwork and management involved there.
Well, I mean, the town does have, I think, have some interest in seeing a project completed, and they've got the money to do it, because if something happens to a developer and he leaves the road incomplete, then we got issues potentially with emergency vehicles trying to run down a road that's not up to to standards or whatever it might be, or might deteriorate more quickly than it otherwise should have. There's no, I mean, it's those types of things that the town has some interest in seeing a development complete, the
But
infrastructure.
if it's on private property,
But we go on private property with emergency vehicles.
okay, now it's becoming muddier all the time the more we talk, because now you're saying that it is essential, so the town would need to complete it for safety, public safety purposes. So
We
the
can't
town
spend
is
money to
liable.
complete it, that's the point, but we want to complete for public, at least for public safety
But
purposes.
this is not town money. This is money that the contractor has put up to guarantee that that job is actually done.
Right.
And if he walks away, we still have his money that we can use to complete the job.
His money.
His money,
Right,
yes, not
right.
town money.
Right.
This is always the contractor's money.
Right.
You
Right,
can use
but
his
Rich, we
money.
demand that the contractor put that money
That's correct. And
aside,
that was the
which is
problem
an
with
imposition.
Brookdale, because he wouldn't put it aside.
Mhm.
You use his money to hire someone to do the project. The town cannot go and do that project on private property, but they can take the contractor's surety money, or if it's a letter, they go to the bank puts up the money to hire someone,
they still
to
couldn't
finish
do
the
it on
project.
private property.
The bank can.
a private contractor can go and finish that project, and the surety bond is not town money.
Only the person, only the owner of that property can do that,
Can do what?
can complete the project. You can't, as a town, as Phil said, you can't go and complete a project if you don't own the property. If the bank owns the property, okay, the bank can go and finish it, but if the bank doesn't own the property, then the bank can't finish it or hire anyone to finish it either.
The bank's got an interest because they usually have a mortgage on the property, so they have an interest in seeing it get done, and they probably have in their loan documents the authority
Right.
to do that.
But shouldn't that then be a function of the bank and not the town to take care of that?
As I said, other than those circumstances where a contractor doesn't utilize the bank, doesn't need a mortgage, but fails in the project for some reason, and then we've had it happen where roads have been just kind of abandoned. And we've had citizens sitting here saying, what are you gonna do about it? And we unfortunately had to tell them nothing, because we can't do anything.
So
So
now
that's
you-
one of the reasons we thought it's best to put these bonds, surety bonds, performance bonds, whatever they're called, in place, not require a contractor to do it as part of his development costs. So, you know, we don't have citizens sitting out here complaining that we didn't properly oversee the completion of this development, and now they've got homes on roads that are deteriorating or were never complete.
Okay,
And as I said, for
but
the.
now you are saying that even though technically the town is not financially liable, practically speaking, it is liable to finish the project because there are public safety issues involved.
It's not liable to finish the project. We have an interest in seeing the projects.
Well, this is a whole lot muddier than I had envisioned it, for one thing, but let's get back to the
Yeah.
primary point, and that there was no enforcement on this surety, on this surety requirement that we have in the ordinance. There was no enforcement whatsoever. And time after time after time, month after month went by, and it was not enforced. And there has been no answer yet why it was not enforced.
My first contact on this whole project was in June 10th. And as soon as I got contact from the planning board, I went ahead and took steps to try to address the issue. And I believe that the memo that I provided, the statement that I read, provided the sequence of events that I took in order to try to accomplish a reasonable conclusion to this. And I think at the end of the day, we did have a reasonable conclusion. We have a project that's now back on track. I believe they've been in front of the planning board. The surety has been put in place. And so they're working on their way to accomplish what they have to do by the approvals that they receive.
It's not the project itself. That's not what I'm concerned about. It's the management. And you said that you felt comfortable with it. You gave them June, whatever it was, you gave them another 30 days. And I'm not sure you have the authority to do that, but you gave them another 30 days. And after that 30 days, they still did not comply, and there still was no enforcement. And just because you happen to be out of town, we do have a CEO.
Right, what happened after my return is that the developer came in and saw me. And I said, where's the surety?
And
He says, it's pending, I should have it for you.
it's been pending for, at that point, 3 months.
John, I understand all that, but
So,
I'm in the trenches right now trying to resolve an issue.
no, it's not a trench, it's a simple issue.
Well,
It's an enforcement issue, you have problems
You're
with
looking at it,
enforcement.
no, I think you're looking at it clearly as a black and white matter, where I think there's a gray in matter, that we're working with people to try to accomplish a goal. And that was what my intent was.
Working
in the
with
process.
people who are trying to avoid payment of the surety. How long do you give a contractor until the end, until the whole project has been completed, which is what you did?
No, it's not what we
The
did.
project, what the surety was there for, was complete by the time they paid it.
Yes, he completed that well before that.
Right.
But the issue I had is he was getting no further until he had resolved the issue with the surety matter with the town and through the planning board. He asked to go back to the planning board, and ask for consideration for reduction in the surety. The planning board, and you were at that meeting, the planning board denied that. They said, no, we want the full amount. So he knew when he left what he had to do.
That was at the end of the project.
Speaking to John's problem, that started back in March when he just did not do it. He kept blowing us off and kept commenting about letters of credit and things going on with the bank, and he just never came through with it. I'm sorry, he just blew the whole thing off because he didn't want to have to deal with it.
And he was
it
getting
got
away
to the
with it.
point, and he was getting away with it. It got to the point where we had to say to him, no, 2%, 10%, no, we want 100% of that surety bond. Come up with all of it.
But
because we're not gonna
let's
accept
get
it.
away from the contractor and let's get to the management, because it's enforcement that I'm concerned about. If you, as a town manager, first of all, why did you take it away from the CEO?
I
That
didn't.
should not be legal.
I didn't take
It
it
was
away
his
from the
case,
CEO.
he should have enforced it immediately, like it normally is done.
Well, there has to be some sort of notice there, and what we've done now is we've put in place.
There was notice.
No, there was no notice to him officially. And what we did is we provide now a mechanism in order for those projects that are subdivision project, that he has noticed that information is there and that this construction should be started. So he has to
How can
put
you
it
say
on
there was
his.
no notice? He was in front of the planning board like 4 times and he was told that is required for you to proceed, and he proceeded anyway and did not provide the surety. The CEO also provided notice that he was in violation, and then you took it and you negotiated whatever, for whatever reason, but it was not enforced. If you're not going to enforce, either you as a manager, who's the primary person responsible, or the CEO, who is supposed to be doing that job, who works for you, if you're not going to, no, I'm sorry, he doesn't work for you, he's an independent contractor, but that's another point I need to bring up. If you're not going to enforce the ordinances of the town, then we might as well throw the whole book out, because you can't do this on a haphazard basis. You can't show favoritism to one and not another. So if you give one contractor, whatever it was, 8 months, 10 months, I forget what it was, then every contractor should have 10 months. Issues should be enforced. They should be dealt with immediately, and if he was given the extra 30 days after 2 months of waiting, if he was given an extra 30 days by the town manager and still not provide that surety, why no enforcement? Just because he came in and whined again because he couldn't get it together? Please.
John, when you say there's no enforcement, what would you envision that to be?
Enforcement would have been a stop work order, which
Okay.
normally is and has been in the past. If you don't have certain things in place, including the surety, there's a stop work order. There's proper notification by the CEO, and there's a stop work order, which then has to be dealt with by the contractor before he can proceed. He actually started work before he was allowed to start work. He started immediately. That was against the ordinance as well. But, you know, so there were plenty of things for the CEO to cite on the stop work order.
Well, and I understand that that's the process, either it's a notice of violation or stop work order, one of the two would be issued by the CEO.
Right.
But it has been this board's, at least as long as I've sat on this board's, stated policy really to ask the CEO not to be draconian and go out and simply issue a stop work order, a notice of violation to somebody, but to first go talk to them, communicate with them, find out what the
Right.
problem is, see if you can work it out before you take that next step.
So after 4 months, that
I
would be
know
enough,
the
right?
circumstances here may be perhaps a little out of control, but I'm saying that the policy of our board and to the manager and the CEO has been, you know, it's not an immediate stop work order.
Why did the CEO, or why did the manager take this case and not the CEO? That's one basic question.
Because I was asked to by the planning board.
No, you weren't.
Yes, I was. I received a memo from the planning board asking for.
Which you delegate to a CEO whose authority it is to do that kind of thing.
Well, that's really up to him.
If you have a CEO in place who is a private contractor, I'm not sure that the town manager can legally take those enforcement
Oh,
cases.
sure he can. And he's not gonna enforce anything. It's this board that's gonna enforce. This ultimately, we have to make the decision to enforce. Because after the stop work order or the notice of violation, if there is no compliance, you gotta go to court. And that's spending money,
Right.
okay? And the only person that can do that is this board. Manager can't do that, CEO can't do that without our authority.
Go to court to enforce if there is no compliance
Right.
with the enforcement action.
Right, so if somebody
Well,
says, gets a
fine.
stop work order and simply goes ahead or doesn't do anything in
But the-
compliance, you gotta go to court.
But the enforcement action is not done by this board. The enforcement action, i.e. stop work order in this case, is done by the CEO.
He issues the stop work order.
Right.
Right. But the issue of whether do we enforce when he does not comply comes to the manager, because we're gonna be spending money, who takes it to us
I
and says,
understand.
and makes a
But there was never a
recommendation.
stop work in the first place. There was never an order issued.
That's,
And it wasn't issued, why?
well, that's a question for the CEO.
Well, it seems like the CEO either wasn't doing his job, or the town manager took that job away from him. Either way, it's not good. The second issue I have is that let's just stick with this particular issue. So, again, I stand corrected if the surety does not put the town at financial risk. That was my biggest concern, because that, to me, is a dereliction of duty if you don't enforce something like that, that puts a town at risk.
Right.
So I stand corrected on that part, but I still see that there was an issue, a lack of enforcement issue here that went on and on and on and on, seemingly with no particular urgency about it. You know, there was months and months and months went by, it doesn't make any sense.
You know, from my perspective, I think the issue was, you know, the town manager trying to work and get things resolved. There have been other instances that have happened with other folks, not this guy, you know, there were other folks where the town manager has stepped in and tried to say, hey, let's get this resolved, let's try, you know, enough of this spending money, enough of this, you know, getting lawyers, so I think his position, and again, I don't wanna speak for the town manager, but from what I saw, it was trying to get this thing resolved, you know, in a manner so that we don't have to spend other people's money.
And fine, I agree with that, that's what Tom said before also. You try to work with the contractor, with the applicant, and try to resolve an issue. But there comes a point in that timeline where you have to say, enough. You don't wait until the project is done, and then say, oh, well, it's resolved now. You know, there's a point.
Well, I
You
agree
gotta
with
put your foot
you. And
down.
I think Keith has mentioned that there's another, you're talking with Jim about another new policy in place.
Yes.
Okay, to deal with something like this, it drags on unwarranted.
I mean, I can understand exactly how you feel
Mhm.
with it dragging on all that length of time. And the appearance that because of who it was, it might appear to be
Well,
favoritism.
and
But any person, any case, anyone, if there are problems with the permitting process, and this happens, and they don't comply, and they don't comply, and they don't comply, I don't have a problem giving anybody a second chance, sometimes even a third chance. But when it comes to that fourth chance, I think that the manager and the code enforcement officer and the planning board need to say, okay, as you said, enough is enough, this is it. It has to be done, I mean, you've got to get that, sooner or later, that nasty letter's gotta go out saying you've got 30 days to comply or else.
Well, exactly, and the planning board, it was a very frustrating time on the planning board. The planning board sent out, almost every meeting, sent out an inquiry about this case, and sent either directly or indirectly something to the town manager saying, what's up, what's going on, and no action.
Well, I think that, Keith, you're working with code enforcement officer, I mean, to make sure that, I mean, I know that there's no black and white, everything is gray, and we try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. This benefit of the doubt, not this benefit of the doubt. So, and I think that they're working on that.
I think that was the frustration
Yeah.
from the planning board
Yeah.
point of view. Okay, we'll give you this much, and we'll
Yeah.
give you this little bit of leeway.
Yes.
But when you start lying to us blatantly in a public meeting, and we can prove that you lied, because we've been talking to the bank, it's now like this,
Yeah.
and nothing happens. And after that, thanks to Mr. Dowling, we decided to put in as part of the conditions of approval, failure to comply with the above-mentioned conditions will be grounds for revocation of your permit. And we may revoke the permit. You know, we'll give you the opportunity to set it straight. We'll work with you to try to do so, but if you don't do so, we're gonna revoke your permit.
But again, that really, although it's nice to have it as a planning board power
Right,
and a
that's
planning
the-
board option, it comes back to management. Management should be all over this and should take care that these things are done in a timely fashion. They're dealt with, and they're dealt with quickly. And if you need to do a little bit of work with the applicant, fine. A month, 30 days, maybe. But when that letter came out and they had another 30 days after, what was it, 4 months, I was like, holy smokes. How can you even justify that? You cannot.
That's easy.
Well,
That's easy to justify,
No.
because when you go to a court and you're looking at that, they're gonna ask the town, what kind of provisions did you provide them? And I would have to say to the court, my involvement started on this date, and when I got involved, I
No.
gave them 30 days from that date.
Your involvement started as soon as the CEO took the issue, which was right at the beginning, because the CEO works for you and reports to you. So you were involved right from the beginning.
That's your opinion.
It is. However, even if you were not involved, the CEO who was representing the town was involved. And, you know, even though you personally were not, he still was, the town was. And, you know, there's no justification. But even after that, there was no enforcement.
I don't know how much involvement that the planning board had with the developer once the project started.
We
Because
met-
one of the key issues that he had in talking to me was expressing the opinion of the need for the surety bond. And I believe I indicated that to you all, because he felt he'd already had the cash in hand, and we tried to, and I know the planning board did on several occasions, and so did I, that because you had the cash, doesn't mean that you can go ahead and do the project, pay for it, because I believe the contractor got paid in full for their work. And he was having a problem with that, and that was one of the other reasons why I indicated to him he needed to come back to the planning board and try to resolve that issue, because it's a big issue.
Well, he got his permit in December, and there's supposed to be a 5-day wait period. And they told us in March that they went out and started the very next day, doing all of the work. Because we asked them in March, we said, you know, we're missing a surety bond, what's going on? I'm working on it, I'll get you the information. And we waited until the end of April, and we kept asking about it, and they both of the principals in this case kept saying to us, well, we have it, we got it from the bank. We gave it to the town. It was, no, you didn't give it to the town, because we checked with Sim, and no, it was never delivered to the town. Well, I'll send you a copy of the information, and they didn't do so, and that brings us into May, which is when we got you involved in the whole scenario. He's just not, he's jerking us around and not doing what he's supposed to do.
And, you know, just to clarify, every contractor has the money or tells us they do. So that's not an issue. And that's why I said that the surety bond doesn't protect the town from liability. Maybe we should require it because it's an extra imposition. You know, every contractor says they've got the money and they've got to have proof of financial ability anyway as part of their application. So.
I still think we need it for the reasons I
Well, if we need it, then we need to enforce it.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but as I said,
I think we need it for the reason you stated, because if you have a multi-unit subdivision, you may very well sell one or two of those units before all of the infrastructure gets finished, so we have to have some means of making sure that that infrastructure gets finished. That's what the surety bond is supposed to be for.
There should be no permits given out until everything is in place.
I agree, but if you look at
And
this,
But sometimes you have phasing, right? Like,
right, we have phasing.
You have phasing that they allow, you know, like the Bartlett's where they have
Yeah, but-
phasing where they allowed certain pieces to go.
The phase that they want these permits for is done.
Yeah.
They, I don't believe the planning board would allow a permit on a phasing that isn't even started. That would
Well, I'm gonna-
protect it.
I'm
And we didn't,
I'm
that's
gonna use
exactly
the-
the point. We didn't allow it. They went ahead and started anyway.
Yeah, but there were no permits allowed,
Right.
no building permits.
But I
Oh,
think
building
Dan
permits.
brings
Yeah,
up
that's
the
what I'm talking
perfect,
about, building permit.
Dan brings up the perfect case, which is Bartlett Farms, because they came to us and they asked us to allow them to sell off some units, and there are some units in one of their phases, but the road is not complete, but they have people who wanna buy it. And we told them, post up the bond, post the surety bond, and yes, you can. Because we'll at least know that the roads up to those pieces of property will be completed if for whatever reason they walk away.
Yeah, but without the surety bond, they
We'd be stuck.
they don't allow a building permit.
Yep.
And in defense a little bit of the months that it took to get this bond in place, I know of a situation probably 3 town managers ago that something kind of similar took place, and it went on for a full year before any serious action was taken. And even then, with the serious action taken, there was still some leeway and some time lapse to get everything done. And I guess I'm defending Keith in the months that they spent getting this one done. I know of one that took well over a year to get completed, and there was some serious action, but took a year to get it first.
But that wouldn't justify what Keith did. That was a really bad one, is what you're saying.
Well,
You're saying that that's the way things should be.
It wasn't as bad as it was made out to be.
But here's, to the chairwoman's point, sitting there from a planning board point of view, it looked as if there was special circumstances being offered to the person who was then chairman of the planning board. That was the appearance that was coming across. It's not true, but that was the opinion and the impression that we as a planning board were getting. It's because of that person's position as the former chairman, he was getting special treatment.
Yeah, perception is reality, as they say. So, I mean, I just think that taking your points to heart, knowing that the planning board, Keith, code enforcement officer, are tightening up things a little bit. As Tom said, we're not and I don't think we ever have been rate 1, 2, 3. But maybe we do need to tighten up a little bit more.
We should
And I can
take this
understand that.
opportunity to do it. I
Yeah.
mean, put some policies in place and time periods within which things should happen, and maybe even this information should come to this board to let us know what's going on, because we didn't hear of it until
Yeah.
it rose to the surface, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some lessons learned here.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think it's an opportunity to make things better going forward.
Like, those policies that are being developed, are they being developed by the town manager or by the board of selectmen?
We'll start with the manager and the CEO.
Me and the CEO, and then they'll come to the board.
Okay, I would like to be kept apprised of those policies, if it pleases the board.
Public information, you're entitled to it.
Well, as you're discussing it,
Yeah, sure.
it's coming up for discussion.
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Thank you very much, I
You're very
appreciate
welcome,
it.
John. New business, discussion on the present tax rate.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, as I told you folks back in the beginning of the month, in November, the end of October, beginning of November, we have discovered that there was a tax rate calculation that was an error. When we developed the tax rate, line 13 of the calculation document in the main revenue service provides a note in there that you need to remove the BET, the Better Business Equipment Tax, as well as the homestead exemption within there when you're calculating the rate. When we did the calculation, the error was that we did not remove that from the rate calculation. So what occurred is that we had a rate that came in at $15.12, when in actuality it should have been $15.44 at the minimum of the overlay. So we're $139,000 short in terms of collection based on that miscalculation. Again, I take full responsibility for that oversight, and it's my responsibility. It's something I should have caught, and I did not catch it. My plan at this point, and I wanted to provide information to you, is to wait until February of this fiscal year, as we move through the fiscal year, to see if this shortfall in collection is going to harm us. Reviewing our last 4 audited financials, it's clear that we take in excess of about $320,000 on an average on a yearly basis with revenue and a savings in our expenditures at the end of the year. So in February, I'll be able to review our financials and be able to make a determination whether or not there is a need for any further town meeting action to collect any further money. I contacted both the town attorney and Maine Municipal Association to determine what process or procedure would be allowed for us to move forward. And because we already set the rate and already collected taxes, the only effort that we could make at this point would be to go ahead with this suggested action that I'm asking you to take a look at. If we had not if we not had sent out the tax bills, there could have been an effort by the town coming back to the board to readjust the tax rate prior to the first issuance of the bills. But that did not happen. So I notified you folks in November. I also notified the budget board of the oversight. I think we're taking appropriate steps here. I feel very confident that we're going to be able to absorb this without any further action. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll know better in we stand. At that point, if we need further efforts by a special town meeting, I'll certainly bring that forward to you.
Okay,
We'd like to make a comment though, that, you know, tax rates are something to be taken very lightly. And, you know, I wanna make sure that we have steps in place so that it just doesn't, you know, happen again, because it really upset a whole bunch of people with stuff like this, so.
Certainly embarrasses me, and I do take responsibility for it because it stops there. I should have caught that. I didn't. And then I would bring it forward to you, and obviously you have to have confidence that I'm providing you accurate information. But rest assured, as soon as we found out, I took immediate action to let you folks know what happened, as long as the budget board, and try to put together a plan of action so we can correct it. So my apologies to you, and yes, I do take it, as you do, seriously.
I think the course of action is appropriate, and you know, might even encourage some departments to look at putting off perhaps some purchases that are built into the budget now to insulate us against that. We can then revisit the issue.
Right, I've already had
Next
some of
year.
those conversations already,
Yeah.
to ensure that, you know, we take steps that sort of tighten our belt a little bit as we get through this.
Is there anything we can do, Keith, to have those figures like double checked next year before we just accept them as being gospel?
Well, most definitely. The other thing that I'll do too is that the Maine Revenue Service does provide the tax calculation form, and as you add the numbers, it provides you a tax rate. And I think part of our whole process as we go through this will be to have that information available to the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Board when we're looking at these numbers. Then we can try to get a better determination what the value is, how it's going to be impacted, so on and so forth. So oftentimes we're doing that maybe before approvals are given by the town meeting vote, but at least we'll have a good benchmark as to where we'll be. So.
What form do they give you that in? Is it just like a piece of paper, or is it a spreadsheet that you can put on your computer?
Yeah, I can.
Pump the numbers in?
Matter of fact, I'll send it to you. It's
Didn't you send that to us?
yeah. I'm really almost computer literate when it comes to this stuff, but the form is there. You add your numbers, and it calculates it for you. Yeah, that's it right there.
That's it, John.
And I'll send it to you, John, so you can add numbers to it and
Okay, thanks.
decide how that works.
okay, anything else on that? Bill of sale for map 4 lot 36.
Yes,
lot 08.
several months ago, the owner, we approached the owner of the Charter Oaks Trailer Park. We had taken by lien a piece of property, trailer in that park that we were hoping that he was going to take ownership from us by paying the past taxes on it. At the time, we'd already, let me just back up, the owners of that property, we have been trying to, for several years the town has, been trying to work out a payment plan with that property owner in order to accomplish this. Before we contacted Charter Oaks, we'd spoken to the property owner again. He assured us that he was coming in to sign the installment agreement. You guys reviewed the installment agreement, and he never came in to sign it. So then I contacted Charter Oaks to see what interest he may have in that property that was in his park. Initially, he had no interest. He said he hadn't spoken to his attorney. A few weeks back, I got a call that he is now interested. And he wanted to know what it would take in order to, for him to gain ownership of it. So I developed a bill of sale, which provides in there a payment of $1,200 to pay off the, I think I put it in your packet. That would provide a payment of $1,200 to the town, and so we would, in turn, we would send him the bill of sale for that property. And get it off, get it back on the tax rolls and have it being collected on behalf of the town. So what I'm looking for would be some effort or some action by the town to accept the bill of sale as written and move forward with the sale.
I make a motion we accept the bill of sale for tax map 004 lot 36-008 as written.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion for, any discussion on this? All in favor? You have an original down there, or,
I think you have it in your packet.
I just have the copy that I got.
Yep. That will do.
And our warrant, if we don't have payroll, it's just the payables warrant.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, and that's right there in front of Phil.
Before we go to executive session,
Yeah.
can I bring up some other business? There are some members of the public that were part of this, and I'd like to bring it up. That's all right?
Sure.
Maybe Keith, you can follow up with this.
Okay.
Part of Kate's Butter's approval, condition that they had was that they were to supply some educational piece. I don't think that has ever happened.
I spoke with one of the members of the Kate's community. That has happened. They have had a couple of school classes there. I didn't ask, and it wasn't said, I don't know if it was Arundel students, but they have had 2, maybe 3 classes. And the barn that, the area that the classes are supposed to take place is not 100% complete. I think it's like 99.9 right today. And they intend on following through with regular classes, is what I was told.
So can we get some sort of schedule or whatever from them? I mean, they've been in business for a while now, since I was on the planning board.
They were supposed to be doing regular
Yes.
educational.
Yep.
Is that part of their conditions of approval?
Yes, it is.
And
Their cows outside
their,
there too, I've
Oh,
seen
their
it.
area,
I've seen the
these
cops.
classes has
See
not
that?
been completed. That's why it hasn't all taken place. But I have business to do with them next week. I will ask for something, some kind of a schedule, and maybe can have it at the next meeting.
In addition to the schedule, could you ask if they have a, I don't want to use the word curriculum because it's way too formal for this, but some sort of an outline indicating what type of thing they're presenting?
Yep.
You know, and they may not have that ready yet, which would be understandable, but at some point that would be interesting.
They
And
probably
if
don't have
the
it.
community would, if we knew what they were doing, perhaps we could give them more customers.
Right.
Just to follow up on
Either what they were
point.
doing or what they're planning on
Yeah,
doing.
that's my
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Tell us what they're planning to do. They
Yeah.
sold us, great, future, great stuff they're gonna be doing, and I'm sure they will. It'd be nice to have from you asking them, what are your plans?
If we knew that, we could give that to the RSU, and the RSU could work out with the
Yeah.
younger kids, or
Right,
what
that's-
have you.
that's
or-
it.
Exactly.
Potential for growth there. Yeah.
I'm glad you followed up on that, Dan, because I was thinking about that recently myself.
Yes, that we.
And just one other thing, can you follow up with the DOT? The new road, Old Alfred, I know it was on their 2017 schedule. Is that still a go?
As I understand, yes. But I will double check it.
Yeah, that came up in a planning board
Yeah.
a couple of weeks back. I believe.
And I
Some of the
went
construction
looking
skid-
on the site and I couldn't find anything, but
Aren't they having problems with the property that they have to acquire.
Aren't they gonna take that garage there on the left?
Yeah, and I think that's being a problem.
Oh, okay.
The owner's balking a little bit, I
Oh,
think.
Rise is rise.
The last I heard was talk about eminent domain, to get that piece of
Really?
property.
Yeah, so if they do that, it might not be 2017.
It might be 2071.
Yeah.
Well, they can go back and do something better with the Hill Road if they're looking for something to do. Because that's not working well.
Hey, that light works really well, I can get out and across now.
Oh, the light works
Boy, I gotta
well,
tell you,
but look at the guardrail.
But, yeah.
that light is dangerous. Look at the black on the road.
Oh, yeah.
That thing, for whatever reason, sometimes you come through there with a truck and you're 500 feet away or 300 feet away and the light is nice and green and you step on the throttle and you get 100 feet away with 70,000 pound load and the light changes.
Yeah, yeah, it does a quick change.
Watch out.
I ain't stopping now.
Yeah, you try.
Wow.
Yeah, there's
And so
a
the
lot
black
of
marks
room on
on
the
the
Do you
road.
think there's an issue with the timing of the signal that we should have looked at?
I'm not sure. We should have it checked maybe, because some days that light stays green forever.
Yeah.
And other days, it changes, 3 cars go through and it changes. And if you're the 4th car with a loaded dump truck, hold on, baby, we're coming
So they should look at it and have it delayed green.
Well, I know that sometimes during the commuter time, they'll have it longer green.
Yeah.
They'll set it up that way, and then they'll have shorter turns in the off time, so
Yeah.
we can take a look at it.
Yeah,
Because I've come on the Hill Road and sat there and it
Pull
seemed
up
like
to
I
that
sat
light
there
on the
forever,
Hill
and I
Road,
thought,
and
what's
you
wrong
watch
with the
it.
light? It's not, and it's not
It's
changing.
green. When it's green coming off Hill Road, it goes yellow, red, and the other light has already changed to green. There's no delay at all.
Yeah.
That's gonna be there.
That's what creates the problem.
Yeah.
Nobody has a chance in either direction.
Yeah.
There's been some close encounters there.
There've been some real close ones.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll make
anything
a
else?
motion, we go into executive session, 4056C, discussion on purchase of property mandatory.
Second?
8:20.
Keep that, John.
We're all leaving now, so we gotta do it next, we gotta get chairs.
I gotta shut that.
All in favor of electing?
Did you get my note on the assessment review?
All in favor?
Yeah, you got
Call me
that.
today. Yeah, you call me today.
Okay.
We had a nice morning today.
For Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah,
No progress here.
I'm waiting for Mike Peterson to get back. Paul Fredo got to me and said that any day is fine with him, and,
In general, that's true with me, it just depends on the timing.
see you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
So that's just the payables warrant there.